But let's get into 1 through 10 in front of the Niners. How set do you think it is up front? We do. So what do we know? I mean, Cam's going to Tennessee, correct?
Correct. That's
Cam's
happening.
going to Tennessee. That's a lock.
It's over. They've canceled almost all their meetings with all other players. Cam Ward, write it in stone, going number 1 overall.
So he's going number 1 to Tennessee. Cleveland at 2 is really where the draft starts. And it sounds like they're not going Shador. But maybe it's all smokescreen. Maybe they are. But a lot of people think Abdul Carter. But as we get closer, I'm starting to think it's Travis Hunter. Just because Travis Hunter, when you take the deep dive on all the prospects, he's the best prospect in the whole draft. Why do I say that? Because he not only is the greatest athlete, but he's also the greatest student. He's an incredible, great student. He's like a 4.0 GPA student, and he's a two-way player who dominates on both sides of the ball. He's a number 1 shutdown corner with great ball skills like a Jalen Ramsey, and he's kind of a home run hitter receiver who could give you, I don't think a full-time receiving thing, but he could probably give you 15 to 20 routes over the course of a game. What do you think Cleveland's going to do it to?
Yeah, I think Travis Hunter makes a lot of sense because they don't have a franchise guy that, like, Deshaun Watson was supposed to be him. That went horribly on and off the field, and they knew about that. Like, they need somebody they can promote. The Browns are a terribly run franchise, and you get somebody like a Travis Hunter, Heisman winner, face of the program, going to help you sell tickets and jerseys. I know that's shallow, but this is the NFL, and I think that it does play. So from an optics perspective, that is your move. Helps offense, defense. You're going to move on from Deshaun eventually. Shedeur Sanders would be an upgrade, but why not go get a blue chip guy on a roster without a lot of blue chip players outside of Myles Garrett, right? So this will help you continue to build. I think that's the right move. I would go Abdul Carter, but you're not wrong with Travis Hunter. Sorry. I think that makes sense. And so if I was betting the number 2 pick, I think it would be Travis as well.
So let's just say for the conversation, Hunter goes 2 to Cleveland. Then you got the Giants on the board at 3. And I don't have a real good feel for this. I mean, they could go Abdul Carter, and this could affect the Niners because if they do go Abdul Carter, they may be willing to trade, Kayvon Thibodeau. And Kayvon Thibodeau is only 25 years old or 26 years old, and he's a pretty damn good edge rusher. The Niners could do worse than adding Kayvon Thibodeau to their defensive front.
Dude's a stud, man.
Yeah.
And that's the problem with the Giants is their strength is pass rushers. And so now the best pass rusher falls to them. Do you just keep loading at pass rushers or do you trade back? I think that this is probably the first trade of the draft. And I think that it would make sense for them to fall back a couple picks. Somebody jump up for the premium pass rusher or the quarterback Shedeur right here. But if they did stay put, man, I don't think they're going quarterback either. I don't think that makes sense. They're going to completely clean that facility out, front staff after this year, and rightfully so. They should have done it last year, in my opinion. But one of those, I could see Mason Graham here as a possibility. I could see offensive tackle. It should be Abdul Carter. But, man, the Giants are just always in the worst place at the worst time. I think that just continues for them at pick 3. But they should go defensively. It should be Mason Graham. It should be Abdul Carter or trade out. I think that's the way that they should build it. They got the 2 quarterbacks. I don't think they're going to draft a third right now. Great quarterback class next year, and I think they're going to refocus with a new coach.
So I agree. I think this is a trade spot. Now, do you see the 49ers in any kind of a trade up mode looking for one of the top, trying to pick off one of the top tier prospects? Or do you think they're in a mode to wait at 11 or possibly trade back? How, will the Niners be calling the Giants? Because the Giants could, if you think about it, if you want Shedeur, or let's just say you're the Giants, they may want Shedeur, they may want Jackson Dart. If you want to make sure you get one of them, trading back with the Niners at 11 probably gets you that quarterback and with better value, and you get something out of it. But would it make sense for the Niners to jump up to 3? And if so, are they jumping up for Will Campbell? Are they jumping up for Mason Graham? Who are they Arman Membu? Who are they jumping up for if they jump up?
If Abdul Carter's there in this situation, that would be the guy you trade up for. But jumping from 11 to 3, we saw what it took to go from 12 to 3 in the Trey Lance trade. Obviously, that went terribly wrong. You're giving up at minimum a third and another first-round pick. I think it's too rich. If you did trade up, though, Abdul Carter would be the pick. The next one, the only two players I'd trade up for in this draft would be Abdul Carter and Mason Graham. I'm not trading up for one of these offensive linemen. It's not a dire need this year. It would be next year. And I think 3's way too rich, probably. It sucked those years where the Niners didn't have a first or even a first and second round pick. I don't want to go back to that. And if they're going to build through the draft, you can't do that by trading away future firsts.
Yeah, no, I agree. So who do you have at 3 with the Giants? You have Carter, or you have Sanders, or you think somebody trades into this spot and takes Carter? Or
I would say trade first, and then I would probably say Abdul Carter. Like he should go. You build around good players.
How concerned are you? I mean, it's like now I'm looking closer at every prospect, and there's warts. There's literally warts on almost every prospect, and that's part of what we're going to do in our mock today. Is we're going to try to find safe picks, guys that don't have warts, guys who have production and health and character. Abdul Carter worries me in 2 areas. One, I think the prevailing wisdom is that he's going to excel more in a defense where he can line up in a 2-point stance, and as opposed to with his hand in the dirt. I mean, just doesn't have a lot of experience with his hand in the dirt. And the Niners are going to make their entire draft around an edge rusher who's undersized as far as weight, who's never really put his hand in the dirt for the most part. He's always been kind of a 2-point rusher. So I've got concerns about his fit in the wide 9. I've got concerns in his ability to play the run on first and second down in the wide 9. And then they were minor offenses, but this guy was arrested 3 times at Penn State, and once as recently as April of last year. And so I think there's all kinds of reasons to have questions about the maturity of the prospect. And there's some risk here. There's some risk. I mean, he obviously, like all edge rushers, you're going to have to refine some technique and get a little stronger and adapt to the league. But this is supposed to be one of the best players in the entire draft, and yet there's questions. There's some questions as to scheme fit. There's questions as to his ability to play the run, and there's questions about his character. How concerned are you with those questions with Carter?
Yeah, I think that they make sense, but in this class where you're lacking that elite ceiling type player, if Abdul Carter hits, if he does, if he reaches what everybody thinks he could be, you are talking about a TJ Watt type impact. Like, he's that type of guy. He has that bend. He has the burst. Yeah, not great versus the run. He's good versus the run. He's not as bad. And yeah, you'd prefer him in a 3-4. But with all teams running multiple looks now defensively between even and odd fronts, and you got the wide 9, every single team, I think all 32 teams have Abdul Carter on their board. I am not advocating for the 49ers to trade up to him. But if the Niners were picking at 3 and Abdul Carter is there, I think the 49ers would swing at that pick, but there are questions. And I think you alluded to a lot of those. And the injury too, the hairline fracture, they're not going to have surgery. That's another issue. So, and that's the microcosm.
You talk about the foot. He's also got a shoulder issue.
Yeah. That's the microcosm of this class. There is no one that is just clean. Even Mason Graham, who I think is probably one of the safest bets, man, he's got some bad weight on his body, not hyper athletic, doesn't have elite, length or build, but the tape is great. So like, even with these guys that are, man, these are stars, these are blue chippers, still questions. Arman Meu, probably the best tackle. Can he play left tackle? Could you kick him into guard? You want him to start at tackle, and he's probably going to go top 5, but like, is he your ideal left tackle? I don't know if that's the case. And so that is this draft. We could poke holes, paralysis through analysis, and whatever else. But I think at the end of the day, Abdul Carter's the number one player on my board. And I would be, whoever gets him, I think had a good draft. Are there questions? Yes.
Yeah, I think my guess is in whatever order it goes: Cam Ward, Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter. Those are the top three players in whatever order. I think they're going to come off the board. I don't think people are going to reach for Shador that high. So that brings us to New England at 4. I think New England's going to go with Will Campbell. I think so Will too. Campbell's going to New England. I think they're looking for the blindside protector for Drake May, and this guy makes sense. Yeah, he's got some short arms. Yeah, he's a little bit narrow, but so what? The guy did it in the SEC against the best players. I saw the interviews. I saw the Path to the Draft interview that he did this week, and I loved it. I mean, he's saying all the right things. He's doing all the right things. To me, he sounds the way I want him to sound. I'm a believer in Campbell. I think Campbell's, I know some people don't like him. He doesn't have ideal length, and some people may view him as a guard because he doesn't have ideal length, but I think that's a mistake. He was a 3-year starter at left tackle in the best conference in college football. He wins with athleticism. He can mirror athletic pass rushers, and he's nasty. So he loves to bury people. He's kind of mean and nasty. So I think Will Campbell is going to the Patriots. I really do.
Yeah, and he fits what Josh McDaniels has had at the offensive line. Just get guys. Joe Thuney, you're going to play everywhere, right? Just get guys. Get your best 5. He can play multiple spots. It's going to be an offensive pick. Could be Mimbow. But I do agree with you. I think Will Campbell is the Vrabel prototypical player, character, all those things. Yeah, I'm offensive pick for sure. Will Campbell would be perfect.
Jacksonville's then next up at 5. A lot of talk about Mason Graham. I will say this about Mason Graham. The guy has got a bad body. Let's just say it. This guy's got a bad body. He's pudgy. He's got a boiler. He doesn't have elite length. He doesn't have elite third down explosion. What he is a super high motor, super quick former wrestler who is awesome on first and second down. He's got, he's a 3 technique monster who can burst through the line of scrimmage, he keeps square on the line of scrimmage, and he just makes plays. He just winds up in his face mask locked on the running back's face mask. It's pretty uncanny, really. He makes plays in the backfield against the run, but, once again, I think he's a little maxed out. You can run at him. I think he can. Against doubles, this is not Javon Kinlaw. This is not, and people would say, well, good. But this is not, what I mean by that is this is not some absolute behemoth that, splits double teams and eats them for lunch. No. This guy, if you double this guy, you're going to be able to kick him out. You're going to be able to move him out of there. He's controlled by doubles. He also played around an awesome cast. Josiah Stewart off the edge is going to be a terrific NFL edge rusher. Kenneth Grant's going to be a terrific player. They had great players all over that defense. So, it's hard to evaluate sometimes players on awesome teams. I love the motor and I love the college production, but I'm worried about the upside. I'm worried about the doughy body. And I'm worried about the durability too. This guy doesn't look, he really doesn't look the part. Let's just be totally honest. This guy does not look like a top 5 NFL draft choice.
He looks like an offensive guard.
Yeah, he looks like a guard. He looks like a bouncer at a TGI Fridays.
No more Jack Daniel's sauce for you, Larry.
This is the guy who says, "Hey, I need you to see your ID." He's got a flashlight, and he beats a couple guys up at the door and saves a couple girls from being harassed. This guy looks like a bouncer. He's obviously a great player. I'm not saying he's not a great player. I'm just saying he may be a little maxed out, and he may not, like I know there's a lot of people who are like, oh, if the Niners can figure out a way to somehow trade up, the apple of their eye is Mason Graham, and I like him. Don't get me wrong, but he might be a little low end. I know he'll start right away, but that bad body worries me. I'll just say this: can you name another bad-bodied badass in the NFL on the defensive line? Go for it.
Yeah, it's a hard one. They're out there. You can put DJ Jones in that kind of category, and I think that's the type of player you're looking for. But DJ
Very
Jones
strong.
came very, very strong, bigger dude. But I will say this about Mason Graham.
That's the other thing. That DJ's at 320. That's the other thing. This guy was listed at 320, played at 320, but his measuring and testing is all about 294. So that also is kind of a concern. What's his actual weight, and what does he need to do to maintain that playing weight?
I did think that it was somewhat of a mistake to come in super light and then not test and then gain weight back and then have your pro day and all that. So I thought that was kind of weird. But at the end of the day, the tape is the tape, and the tape is consistently good for 3 years now.
Yeah, it's very good.
But can you can you build? Now, if he goes to Jacksonville, he's going to be playing next to Eric Armstead. All right, cool. Like Armstead could play that Kenneth Grant role and take up and absorb blocks and be the plugger role. And then you just let Mason Graham kind of do his thing. So I like the way that fits. And I would be okay if the Niners traded up for him. I do have him as defensive tackle 1. I do have him as a top 5 grade. But again, this draft class, Larry, and you are freaking crushing it. You can poke holes and you can sit there and say, but at the end of the day, the tape should be first, second, and third priority. The testing and all the eye tests and all those things, I think that they are secondary metrics. The tape is just so consistently good. Against the pass, against the run. Is he elite at anything? No, but he's not even like a jack of all trades. He's like a king of all trades. He just does everything you want to win football games. And there's not a lot of those guys in this draft class. There's not. So I would have no problem. I think Jacksonville will take him at 5. I think if he falls past 5, that's where the 49ers start picking up the phone, see if they can get a bargain trade up. I would be very happy if the Niners traded up for him, but they have so many holes. I don't think that's a luxury that they can afford after skipping basically free agency on the defensive side of the ball.
Well, here's a scenario that could unfold. There's a lot of talk coming out of Chicago right now that the Bears are absolutely in love with Ashton Genty, and that the Bears want Genty, and that the Bears are going to take Genty at 10, or the Bears love him so much they may trade up for him. And if they love him so much, the team they want to get in front of is the Raiders, who are at 6. So you may see Jacksonville trade with the Bears, and the Bears may jump in front of the Raiders and take Genty at 5. I think that's a possibility. But let's just say it doesn't happen. Jacksonville goes with the big defensive lineman, Mason Graham. And so now you got the Raiders on the clock at 6. And do they go Ashton Genty? There's a lot of talk there. Do they go Shador? Do they go Jackson Dart? Do they pull a wild card? Do they take Membu? Mikael Williams? I mean, it's Shamar Stewart. I think this is kind of, if Genty's there, I think the Raiders probably want Genty, and there's been a lot of talk about that. But what do you think? What do you think the Raiders do at 6?
The one thing that has been consistent with Pete Carroll since that addition, it's win now. So I do not see a quarterback. You have the oldest coach in the NFL. You just signed Geno Smith. What is the most win now pick? Yeah, you have a deficit at the running back position. You saw different teams do this with, the Lions taking Gibbs and it just panning out immediately. They're trying to win now. I think Genty is almost a lock at this position. I really, really do. And the only way, like you said, Larry, you got a crystal ball in what I'm thinking over here. The only way Genty isn't the pick to the Raiders is if they trade out and you get the Bears or the Denver Broncos or somebody to trade up and get the running back. That's it. Like, Genty's going top 6. It's a lock. Whether somebody leapfrogs the Raiders and takes them, or the Raiders take them, or the Raiders trade out and somebody takes them, he's a lock.
And this could impact the Niners. Why? Because I think, one, if Jacksonville makes the deal if the Bears trade up to 5 to get in front of the Raiders and take Genty, So now the Bears at 5 take Genty, and the Raiders are sitting at 6. What do the Raiders do at 6? I think you're right. Shador probably isn't going to be their guy. So I think the Raiders at that point might be a trade candidate for the Niners, just from the standpoint of, okay, they wanted Genty. The Bears jumped in front of them and got Genty. They don't want Shador. They're sitting at 6. They probably could get the same guy at 11. The Niners, if you do think like Mason Graham and want to trade up for Graham, that might be the spot right there where the Niners trade with the Raiders. And I'll say this, the other guy that I'd be very intrigued to get in this draft from the Raiders is Michael Mayer. I have a couple guys listed as veterans that I'd like to see the Niners come away with this week or in the draft weekend.
Oh.
Mayer's one of them. I love the tight end class, but you know what? I like Mayer as much as most of them. And I think Mayer would be a really nice player who at this point has not come into his own, but I think has an ability to really come into his own in San Francisco. And be that 12 personnel second tight end next to Kittle. I think that would be intriguing. So, but for the sake of it, we'll say Campbell goes forward to New England. We'll say Jacksonville takes Graham. The Raiders take Genty, and now the Jets are on the clock at 7. In this scenario, I think they're going Membu. I just think the Jets need a right tackle, and I think they would probably go Arman Membu. But there's also talk that the Jets want a quarterback, and maybe they'll go Jackson Dart here. Maybe they'll go Shador here. Shador and Dart are the wild cards in the top 10 for sure. I think this is a spot and the New Orleans spot where they could go. So this could be, this could be Membu to the Jets, or this could be a quarterback to the Jets. What do you think?
Yeah, Membu makes so much sense. You paid Justin Fields. I think you got to build that out, and you got to give that a shot. You paid that dude $20 million a year. Like, let's see what happens. Why not build around him? You have a solid roster. The defense is great. You just got to get adequate offensive line protection, and I just don't think that you have it. Chukwuma Okafor is currently your right tackle. Why not go get the best, cleanest right tackle in the draft, plug and play? Membu goes there. Athleticism with Fields Mimbo, it's a match made in heaven.
Yeah, I mean, you got Fashanu at left tackle. He's your blue chipper. Now you got Membu at right tackle. If you're the Jets, build with some anchor tackles. And then Carolina's at 8. I think they're going with one of the Georgia guys. I think there's a chance Mikael Williams goes here, but there's also a very good chance that Jalen Walker goes here. And I would say Walker would probably be who I'd lean to going here at 8. What do you think? Or do you see, there's also a lot of people that feel like Shamar Stewart as a wild card could jump into any of these spots because it's beauty in the eye of the beholder with a guy who has that high-end potential.
And, probably the best Shamar Stewart comp is Jadeveon Clowney. Guess where Jadeveon Clowney is, right? He would start opposite Clowney. Do they have a type? If they do, yeah, why not? Shamar would be a perfect fit there. They have a huge need opposite of that. It makes sense. It really, really does. So I could see that. I think their offensive line, they're completely happy with. I think this is where you start to talk Tet McMillan. I think it's a little early for them. But, if you're going to invest and you want to make sure Bryce Young's going to be the guy, why don't you get him some more weapons? But I just don't think there's enough value to go Tet McMillan there. They're going to give Xavier Legette more chances to be that true X. They moved out. They traded their wide receiver they took a year before to the Cowboys. So, yeah, I like the Shamar, and I hope if I could have anything for the 49ers perspective, I'd have Shamar Stewart go here because I don't want the Niners taking him at 11. And so this would push somebody else down further. But I do think it's a better fit. He would be a better fit on the Panthers than he would the Niners.
Yeah. So, I think a super athletic defender goes here. Mikael Williams, Shamar Stewart, Jalen Walker. I'll say it's Mikael Williams, but I don't know. I'm just guessing. All right, here's where the thing really takes a turn. We're 2 picks away from the Niners pick. The Saints are on the clock. Derek Carr's just came out that he's got a serious injury. He's going to need a surgery. The Saints, this is likely going to be a quarterback. Now, there's Cam Ward is the number 1 quarterback. Then it truly is, and I talked to a buddy of mine who scouts who said, Krug, the one thing, I said, there's always wrinkles, there's always surprises. I said, you're on the inside, I'm on the outside. Take me and bring me on the inside and tell me what you think the the outside the box surprises that the public are not talking about, what's going on around the league in the inner circles of the talks. And the guy said to me, he said, one, watch for the Saints at 9. And he said, you know what? Every team has QB 2, 3, and 4 listed differently. And he said he thinks this could be Jackson Dart. He said he thinks this could be Shedeur Sanders. But he also said that he thinks there's a 10 to 15% chance that it's Jalen Milroe. And I said, what? Jalen Milroe is going to go 9th in the draft after that horrendous Senior Bowl where he looked atrocious? He didn't look like a quarterback. And he's like, yeah, there's a lot of teams that love his attitude, arm strength, and mobility. They said that there's teams out there that feel that they can coach him up, that he's got a great attitude, that he's not a diva, that, there's concerns about the quirks of Jackson Dart. There's concerns about the skill set of Shedeur, who doesn't necessarily have great arm strength or great stature, and, is a high completion percentage guy, but is it accuracy? Is he throwing underneath? There's questions about Shedeur. There's questions about Dart. There's questions about Milroe. But my guy said there's a chance that Milroe goes top 10 in front of the Niners. Now, John, how shocked would you be on draft day at the draft party? How shocked would you be if you're at you're right here. You're at the draft party.
I love it.
You're talking to the hyena, for crying out loud. And Jalen Milroe goes 9 to the Saints.
I would be flabbergasted, but I can understand. The NFL's a copycat league. Who just won the Super Bowl, right? Jalen Hurts. And so you have this mobile, high character, high work ethic, high athlete, strong arm. He's got limitations, but if you surround him with quality coaching and quality players and a strong O-line, yeah, it can work. And so, how much do they believe in Spencer Rattler? Jake Hayner, that's on there too. But man, this is crazy that they chose to stay with Derek Carr. I thought that was a mistake. And supposedly they knew about this injury before they guaranteed another $20 million. That's crazy to me. And now he might not even play. But
did you see this comment from Invader? He says Milroe got the draft invite, and I forgot to even mention that. Yeah, they invited him to New York, and the last thing they want is Aaron Rodgers 2.0 with Milroe sitting there, and why is he not being drafted? Oh, look at him. He looks a little stressed. So that right there tells us that somebody in the NFL told the NFL people this guy's going in the first round.
I think he will. I think top 10's rich, but we thought that last year. Nobody had 6 of the top 12 picks being quarterbacks last year. Nobody had that. And so this is a super quarterback needy year. And now the Saints, who were thought to be, okay, they got 1 to 2 years. Now they're in dire straits. So yeah, Jackson Dart or Shedeur Sanders seems to be the common thing. I've been saying 3 quarterbacks in the first round, and maybe Milroe sneaks in there. This would be crazy, but I would love it as a Niners fan.
Oh, as a Niners fan, you'd love it. So that brings us to the pick in front of the Niners, 10. And if the Bears can't trade up for Genty, do they go for Amarion Hampton at the 10th pick overall? Do they trade back? Who do you think the Bears want if they don't get Genty? They don't need a quarterback. They don't really need an offensive lineman. The defensive lineman, Graham, that they're supposedly interested in if he falls in their lap, has gone off the board. The board's played pretty straight, right? It's gone Cam Ward, Hunter, Abdul Carter, Will Campbell, Mason Graham, Ashton Genty, Arman Meu, let's say Jalen Walker, Mikael Williams, Shamar Stewart. Somebody goes there at 8. Quarterback surprise at 9. What do you do if you're the Bears at 10?
Yeah, here's the thing. You look at their head coach, right? He was in this exact same situation with the Lions, where everybody had the same number 1 overall, running back, and it wasn't Jamar Gibbs. Who went ahead of Jamar Gibbs? That was like It was Bijan Robinson, right? Bijan Robinson was
Yep,
the
yep.
consensus greatest running back ever, right? Well, they tried to trade up in that draft. They didn't do it, but they were able to stay still. It took Gibbs, but rumors were that they had Gibbs higher than Bijan Robinson. I could totally see this exact same situation with this team. And so this is where I think Omarion goes. Travion Henderson, a little bit of a dark horse, but you could throw in some of, Tyler Warren. I could totally
Tyler
see
Warren makes a lot of sense.
him making a play here. Yeah, they have Cole Kmet.
He sounds like a Chicago Bear.
If any coordinator could use him, Kyle Shanahan, and then also, Ben Johnson, I think could utilize him better than anybody else.
Yeah. So then you got the Niners sitting there at 11. Let's just say it's Tyler Warren, I should say. I'm looking at Mason Graham's name on a paper. Tyler Warren. Let's just say Tyler Warren, because Tyler Warren also could go earlier. He could go to the Jets. He could go. The one pick I'm pretty sure Tyler Warren won't go to. He won't go to the Raiders. Pretty sure. Could you imagine if the Raiders went Tyler Warren after getting Bowers last year and Mayer the year before that? I mean, that would be so Raiders. But I think Tyler Warren's probably going to go top 10 to the Bears. And then you get the Niners sitting there at 11. And they're sitting there looking at either reaching, if you want to call it that, for Walter Nolan, Kenneth Grant, or taking Jalen Walker, Shamar Stewart, or Mikael Williams, whoever didn't go to Carolina and is left on the board. The Niners could be staring right at Shamar Stewart. The Niners could be staring right at Mikael Williams. My concern with Mikael Williams is he had 17 or 14 sacks in his entire career, and he didn't work out great. Like I'm always leery of these prospects where it's like you look at them closer and there's nothing there. I call them the cotton candy prospects. Trey Lance was like this. Oh yeah, he's got a great arm. Oh well, he doesn't have a great arm. Oh, he's got great mobility. Oh, he doesn't have great mobility. Well, then he's not a very good prospect. If he doesn't have great arm and he doesn't have great mobility, he's not really a very good prospect. So, and it's like I'm starting to look at some of these guys like Mikael Williams. It's like he doesn't have elite production. Well, guess what? Maybe he has elite traits. That's why he's going to get drafted. And I think that was the thinking coming into the draft process, was that he's going to show in his workouts that he's a man among boys and has elite traits. And everybody's going to look away from mediocre production and say, it was the ankle. But the traits, he ran 4.7. And so he doesn't, now you're looking at him, he's like, he doesn't have great traits. He doesn't have great production. He's got body beautiful. But I mean, it's not a movie; it's a football game. So you got to have guys that don't just look the part. You got to actually be good. So I don't want to see them go Mikael Williams. I understand your concerns about Shamar Stewart, though I'm a bigger fan of Shamar Stewart because I really think that what people don't understand about Shamar is that his motor is off the charts and he hasn't been coached up that well. If Chris thinks he can coach him, the athleticism is going to stay. The motor is going to stay. And he does play very hard. I think I would go Walter Nolan here if I were the Niners, but that, he's projected to go 10, 12, 15 picks later. So, how do you play this before we move off of this? How do you play this at 11?
It's hard, right? Because production's a major issue with both Mikael Williams and Shamar Stewart, which should probably be the pick that you're going at this spot because of the value, the positional value. Usually this is where defensive ends go, and they always get pushed up the board. So, if you're looking at, Shamar Stewart's got 4 career sacks, like 4. Okay, Mikael Williams got 14. You have to knock them both. Neither one of them performed to the level that you're hoping they're going to perform. The athleticism, Shamar Stewart's got that in spades. So that's hard. Defensive tackle is a bigger need on this roster. Like, you don't have a starting defensive tackle. I like Evan Anderson. He's a rotational run stopper, but you don't have a starter. So defensive tackle is a bigger need. Walter Nolan, Kenneth Grant. I would throw Derek Harmon in there. I know you're not a Derek Harmon guy. Those guys should go in the 20s. So this is the problem. You're sitting there at 11, and there's a bunch of, could I talk myself into this guy at this position? That's the problem. You want to trade back, but who wants to trade up? You got to have two to tango. If you don't have that,
When what would they be trading up for? I mean,
exactly.
maybe
Quarterback?
Dart or Shador if they don't go in front of the Niners. One of those quarterbacks. I mean, the only thing is if Cam goes one, and let's just say, Shador goes in the top 10, there may be, the Pittsburghs of the world, some of these teams that need a quarterback may get nervous. I've seen offers where people are saying, hey, Steelers offer 26 first round pick and
Oh,
21 to move up
jeez.
to 11.
You
Would you
smashed that.
move? Would you move back for next year's one
Hell
for the
yes.
Steelers?
Yeah, if we get this year's pick as well. So, if you get 21 this
21.
year and their first, yes. I can't see Tomlin offering that for a Jackson. He already had Kenny Pickett, right?
Right.
And so, man, Jackson Dart, Kenny Pickett, birds of a feather. No offense, he's probably going to be a better pro, but man, where are the elite traits? He's got the moxie, but I would do it from the Niners. I can't see that coming across the table from Mike Tomlin. I don't see him panicking ever.